A desperate woman grabs a stranger's hand to escape her abusive ex-husband, only to discover she's claimed protection from the most feared gunslinger in the West, and he has his own deadly reasons for helping her. The metallic taste of blood fills Rose McAllister's mouth as she presses herself against the rough wooden wall of Deadwood's only saloon. Her split lip throbs in rhythm with her racing heart, and the purple bruise around her left eye has swollen shut, turning her world into a kaleidoscope of pain and shadows. The stench hits her next, not the usual mixture of whiskey, tobacco, and unwashed bodies that clings to every frontier drinking establishment, but something sharper. Fierce sweat. The acrid smell of violence about to explode like a powder keg in a lightning storm. Deadwood, Dakota Territory. September 1876. A town where gold fever burns as hot as the hatred between men who've forgotten what civilization means. Through the saloon's grimy window, Rose watches her ex-husband Frank Morrison stalk down the main street like a predator hunting wounded prey. His massive frame casts shadows that seem to swallow the afternoon light, and his scarred knuckles, the same knuckles that had painted her face in shades of purple and yellow, flex with anticipation. He's found her. Again. Rose's fingers tremble as she touches the small derringer hidden in her dress pocket. 2 bullets. Frank Morrison is a big man and big men die hard. The saloon door explodes inward. Frank's voice booms across the suddenly silent room like thunder before the storm. Where is she? Rose shrinks deeper into the shadows, her breath coming in short, desperate gasps. At the bar, a figure sits motionless, a man in a black duster, his face hidden beneath the brim of a weathered hat. Something about his stillness speaks of coiled danger, like a rattlesnake sunning itself on a rock. Frank's boots thunder across the floorboards. I know she's here. Rose. Get out here, woman. Desperation makes Rose bold. She steps from the shadows and grabs the stranger's hand, her fingers closing around calloused skin and old scars. Please, she whispers. Help me. The stranger's head turns slowly, revealing a face carved from granite and shadow. Jack Raven, though she doesn't know his name yet, has eyes the color of winter sky and a mouth that's forgotten how to smile. A scar runs from his left temple to his jaw, a souvenir from a knife fight in Abilene. Ma'am, he says quietly, his voice carrying the gravel of a man who's swallowed too much dust and death. Frank Morrison freezes mid-step, his face going pale as desert bone. Jack Raven. The name ripples through the saloon like a stone dropped in still water. Conversations die. Hands drift toward gun butts. Even the piano player stops mid-note. Rose feels the stranger's, Jack's, hand tighten around hers. Not possessive but protective. The gesture of a man who's made promises to himself about protecting the innocent. Frank Morrison, Jack says, not bothering to turn around. Heard you were in town. This ain't your business, Raven. Lady asked for help. Makes it my business. Frank's hand hovers over his gun, but he doesn't draw. Rose can see the calculation in his eyes, the weighing of pride against survival. She's my wife. Ex-wife, Rose corrects, finding courage in Jack's presence. Divorce ain't final till I say it's final. Jack stands slowly, his movement fluid as water over stone. When he turns to face Frank, Rose sees something in his eyes that makes her blood run cold. Not anger, something colder. More final. Seems to me the lady's made her position clear. Frank Morrison backs toward the door, his bravado crumbling like a house built on sand. This ain't over, Rose. You hear me? This ain't over. He disappears into the street, leaving behind the smell of fierce sweat and broken pride. The saloon slowly returns to life, conversations resuming, cards being dealt, whiskey being poured. But Rose notices the way men avoid looking directly at Jack, the way they give him space like he's carrying some invisible disease. Thank you, she says, releasing his hand. Jack studies her face with professional assessment, cataloging the damage Frank's fists have done. He do that to you? Rose touches her swollen eye self-consciously. It's not as bad as it looks. It's worse. Jack signals the bartender, a nervous man named Pete who approaches like he's serving drinks to the devil himself. Whiskey, Jack says. And something for the lady's face. Pete produces a bottle and a clean cloth, his hands shaking slightly as he sets them on the bar. Jack soaks the cloth in whiskey, then hands it to Rose. This'll sting. Rose presses the cloth to her split lip, wincing as the alcohol burns. Why did you help me? Seemed like the right thing to do. Men like Frank Morrison don't usually back down from anyone. Jack's smile holds no warmth. I ain't anyone. Rose studies his face, noting details she'd missed in her desperation. The way his coat hangs loose to accommodate shoulder holsters. The calluses on his gun hand. The careful way he positions himself to watch both the door and the mirror behind the bar. You're him, aren't you? The one they write about in the newspapers. Newspapers lie. Do they? Jack meets her gaze directly. Sometimes they don't lie enough. A piece of paper on the floor catches Rose's attention. A telegram that must have fallen from Frank's pocket during his hasty retreat. She picks it up, her blood turning to ice water as she reads. Jack, she whispers. Look at this. The telegram is addressed to Frank Morrison, sent from someone signed only as HM. The message is brief but chilling. Target confirmed in Deadwood. Payment on completion. No witnesses. Jack takes the telegram, his expression darkening as he reads. When did your husband, ex-husband, arrive in town? Yesterday. Said he'd come to take me home. But he didn't come alone. Rose's stomach drops. What do you mean? Jack folds the telegram carefully, tucking it into his vest pocket. Frank Morrison's not smart enough to track you across 3 territories by himself. Someone's paying him. Someone who wants you found. But why? I'm nobody. Just a woman trying to start over. Nobody's nobody, ma'am. Question is, what makes you worth killing for? Jack escorts Rose from the saloon, his presence clearing a path through the crowded street like Moses parting the Red Sea. Men tip their hats and step aside, their faces carefully neutral. Where are you staying? Jack asks. Mrs. Henderson's boarding house. Room 12. Not anymore. Frank knows where to find you there. Jack leads her toward the edge of town, where a small cabin sits among the pines like a hermit's retreat. The building is neat, well-maintained, with curtains in the windows and flowers in a small garden. This is your place? Rose asks. For now. Inside, the cabin is spartanly furnished but clean. A bed, a table, 2 chairs, and a gun rack holding enough weapons to outfit a small army. Rose settles into one of the chairs, exhaustion weighing on her shoulders like a lead blanket. I don't understand any of this. Frank's a brute, but he's not a killer. Not for money anyway. Tell me about your marriage. Rose stares out the window at the mountains that ring the valley, their peaks sharp as broken glass against the sky. I was 17 when I married Frank. Thought I was in love. Thought he'd protect me. Protect you from what? From my past. From who I used to be. Jack waits, understanding that some stories need time to unfold like flowers in the morning sun. My real name isn't Rose McAllister, she continues. It's Rose Hartwell. My father was Samuel Hartwell. Jack's expression doesn't change, but Rose sees recognition flicker in his eyes. The banker, he says. The banker who disappeared with $500,000 in gold from the Territorial Bank of Colorado. They found his body 3 months later, but the gold was never recovered. And you know where it is. I know where he hid it. He told me before he died, made me promise to keep the secret until I was old enough to use it wisely. Jack moves to the window, scanning the street for signs of trouble. How old are you now, Rose? 24. Old enough. Rose considers the question, thinking of the years she'd spent running from her father's legacy, hiding behind Frank Morrison's name and protection. I thought I was. But now. She gestures at her bruised face. Now I'm not sure about anything. The telegram mentioned payment on completion. Someone wants you dead, not captured. Why? Because dead women can't reveal secrets. Jack turns from the window, his winter sky eyes holding new intensity. Who else knows about the gold? No one. My father made sure of that. Someone knows. Someone who's willing to pay Frank Morrison to kill you for it. A sound outside makes them both freeze, the jingle of spurs on the front porch. Jack's hand moves to his gun with fluid grace. Rose? Frank's voice carries through the door, deceptively gentle. I know you're in there. We need to talk. Jack motions for Rose to stay back as he approaches the door, his Colt .45 appearing in his hand like magic. Morrison, Jack calls out. You're trespassing. This is between me and my wife, Raven. Ex-wife. And she's under my protection now. Frank's laugh sounds forced, brittle. Your protection? That's rich. You know what they say about your protection, don't you? Jack's jaw tightens almost imperceptibly. Enlighten me. They say everyone you protect ends up dead. Your partner in Dodge City. That family in Tombstone. Even your own brother. Rose sees something flicker across Jack's face. Pain, quickly suppressed but unmistakably real. Ancient history, Jack says. Is it? Because I'm thinking Rose might want to know what kind of man she's thrown in with. The front door explodes inward, but it's not Frank who enters. Sheriff Wade Collins fills the doorway, his badge glinting in the afternoon light and his hand resting on his gun butt. "Mr. Raven," Collins says with forced politeness. "Mrs. Morrison, I'm afraid I'm going to have to ask you both to come with me." "On what charge?" Jack asks. "Disturbing the peace. Threatening a citizen. Take your pick." Frank appears behind the sheriff, his face wearing a smug expression that makes Rose's stomach turn. "This is harassment, Sheriff," Rose says. "I haven't broken any laws." "Maybe not. But Mr. Morrison here has filed a complaint. Says you stole money from him when you left." "That's a lie." "Maybe it is. Maybe it isn't. Either way, it needs to be sorted out proper-like." Jack hasn't moved, his gun still in his hand but pointed at the floor. "Sheriff, you know as well as I do that Frank Morrison's lying. What I know is that I've got a citizen making a complaint and a known gunfighter threatening him. That's enough to bring you both in for questioning." "And if we refuse?" Collins' hand tightens on his gun. "Then I'll have to insist." Rose steps forward, placing herself between Jack and the sheriff. "It's all right, Jack. I'll go with them." "Rose?" "I said it's all right." But Rose's eyes tell a different story. She's seen something in the sheriff's face, some flicker of recognition or guilt that speaks of deeper corruption. "Sheriff Collins," she says carefully, "how long have you known my ex-husband?" "Just met him yesterday when he came to file the complaint." "Funny. Because he seems to know exactly which laws to cite and which forms to file. Almost like someone coached him." Collins' face flushes red above his badge. "I don't know what you're implying." "I'm not implying anything. I'm stating a fact. Frank Morrison couldn't spell complaint if his life depended on it, much less file legal paperwork." Jack's eyes narrow as understanding dawns. "Someone's paying you, Sheriff. Same someone who's paying Frank. That's a serious accusation, Raven." "It's a serious situation." The standoff stretches like a held breath, 4 people in a small cabin with enough tension to light dynamite. Then Frank makes his move. Frank's hand drops to his gun, but he's not fast enough. Jack's Colt speaks first, the bullet taking Frank in the shoulder and spinning him around like a child's top. Sheriff Collins draws his weapon, but Rose is already moving. Her small derringer appears in her hand, its twin barrels trained on the corrupt lawman's chest. "I wouldn't," she says quietly. Collins freezes, his gun half drawn. "Mrs. Morrison, you're making a mistake. The only mistake I made was trusting men like you and Frank." Jack keeps his gun trained on Frank, who's clutching his wounded shoulder and cursing in 3 languages. "Sheriff," Jack says conversationally, "I'm thinking you might want to explain who's been filling your pockets." "I don't know what you're talking about." "Sure you do. Someone's paying you to look the other way while Frank here kills his ex-wife. Question is, who?" Collins' resolve crumbles like a house built on sand. "I don't know his real name. Just calls himself HM, sends money through the bank, tells me what needs doing." "How much money?" $500. More than I make in a year." Rose's blood turns to winter. $500 to let Frank kill me? He said you stole something. Said you were dangerous. The only thing dangerous about me is what I know. Jack moves closer to Frank, who's still bleeding and cursing. "Frank, time to start talking. Who's HM?" "Go to hell, Raven." Jack's gun barrel finds Frank's wounded shoulder. The big man screams as Jack applies pressure. "I'll ask again. Who's HM?" All right. All right." Frank gasps. "His name's Harrison Maddox. Owns half the mining claims in Colorado." Rose's face goes white as desert bone. "Maddox? You know him?" Jack asks. "He was my father's business partner. The one who accused him of stealing the gold." Understanding floods through Jack like ice water. "He framed your father. And when Papa died, Maddox thought the secret died with him. But then I grew up and he started worrying that Papa might have told me something. So he's been watching you. Waiting. Waiting for me to lead him to the gold." Jack looks at the telegram again, seeing the trap with crystal clarity. "He doesn't want you dead, Rose. He wants you to run. Wants you scared enough to go to the gold so he can follow you there." But the telegram said. "The telegram's a fake. Meant for us to find. Frank was never supposed to kill you here in Deadwood. He was supposed to chase you, make you desperate enough to run to the one place you feel safe. The place where the gold is hidden. Where is it, Rose?" Rose closes her eyes, seeing her father's face in her memory. Hearing his voice as he made her promise to keep the secret safe. "Devil's Canyon. There's a cave behind the waterfall. Papa hid the gold there before he died. How far? 2 days' ride north. Jack moves to the window, scanning the street with professional paranoia. They'll be watching the roads, waiting for us to make our move. Us. Jack meets her gaze, and Rose sees something in his eyes she hadn't noticed before. Not just protection but genuine care. You helped me when I needed it, he says. Time I return the favor. Jack, you don't understand. The stories Frank told about your protection are true. Jack's voice carries the weight of old grief. Everyone I've ever tried to protect has died. My partner. That family in Tombstone. My brother. Then why? Because maybe it's time to break the pattern. They leave Deadwood at sunset, riding north through country that grows wilder with each mile. Jack leads the way on a black stallion that moves like liquid shadow, while Rose follows on a chestnut mare borrowed from the livery stable. Behind them, the lights of Deadwood fade into memory, but Rose knows they're not alone. Maddox's men will be following, staying just out of sight, waiting for the perfect moment to strike. Jack, Rose says as they make camp beside a stream that chatters like gossiping women. Tell me about your brother. Jack tends the fire, his movements economical and precise. His name was Tom. Younger than me by 3 years. Always looked up to me, wanted to be a gunfighter like his big brother. What happened? I got him killed. Jack's voice carries no emotion, just fact delivered like a weather report. Took him with me to Abilene, figured he could watch my back while I cleaned up the town. Instead, he took a bullet meant for me. That wasn't your fault. Wasn't it? I knew the risks. Knew what kind of men we were facing. But I brought him anyway because I was lonely and he was family. Rose studies Jack's face in the firelight, seeing the guilt that's carved lines around his eyes and turned his hair prematurely gray. Is that why you help people? To make up for Tom? Maybe. Or maybe I just can't stand to see good people suffer. And the others? Your partner? The family in Tombstone? Jack's jaw tightens. My partner got careless, trusted the wrong person. The family, they were caught in crossfire meant for me. So you blame yourself for everything. Shouldn't I? Rose moves closer to the fire, feeling the desert cold seeping into her bones. My father used to say that guilt was like carrying water in a bucket with holes. No matter how much you put in, it all leaks out eventually. Your father sounds like a wise man. He was. That's why I can't let Maddox get away with what he did. Jack looks up from the fire, his winter sky eyes reflecting the flames. Even if it means risking your life? Especially then. The sound of hoofbeats in the distance makes them both freeze. Multiple riders moving fast through the darkness. How many? Rose whispers. Jack listens with the trained ear of a man who's survived by reading danger in the wind. 6. Maybe 7. Maddox's men? Has to be. Jack kicks dirt over the fire, plunging them into darkness. Time to go. They mount their horses and ride deeper into the canyon, following a game trail that winds between towering rock walls like a snake through a maze. Behind them, the sound of pursuit grows closer. There. A voice echoes off the canyon walls. I see them. Gunfire erupts, muzzle flashes lighting the darkness like deadly fireflies. Bullets whine off stone, sending chips of rock flying like shrapnel. Jack draws his rifle, returning fire with deadly precision. One of the pursuers screams and falls from his horse. The cave. Rose shouts over the gunfire. It's just ahead. They round a bend in the canyon and there it is. Devil's Falls, a curtain of water tumbling from a cliff face 100 feet above. Behind the falls, barely visible in the moonlight, Rose can see the dark mouth of the cave where her father hid his secret. Can we get behind the waterfall? Jack asks. There's a ledge. Narrow but passable. They dismount and lead their horses along the treacherous path, water from the falls soaking them to the skin. The cave mouth yawns before them like the entrance to another world. Inside, the sound of the waterfall becomes a constant roar that drowns out all other noise. Jack lights a torch, revealing a cavern that stretches back into darkness. Where's the gold? He asks. Rose moves deeper into the cave, her memory guiding her to a pile of rocks that looks natural but isn't. Behind the rocks, wrapped in oilcloth, are dozens of leather bags heavy with gold coins. $500,000, she breathes. Enough to buy a small kingdom. Or enough to get us both killed. The sound of voices outside the cave makes them both turn. Maddox's men have found the entrance. They're in there, someone shouts. Behind the falls. Jack checks his ammunition. How many bullets you got in that Derringer? 2. Make them count. As Jack prepares for the coming fight, Rose notices something she'd missed before, A leather portfolio wrapped with the gold, its contents protected by oilcloth. Inside, she finds documents that make her blood run cold. Bank records, correspondence, contracts, all bearing her father's signature and Harrison Maddox's. "Jack," she whispers. "Look at this." The documents tell a story of partnership turned deadly. Samuel Hartwell and Harrison Maddox had been equal partners in a mining venture that struck it rich. But Maddox had wanted it all, had systematically cheated Hartwell out of his share. "Your father didn't steal the gold," Jack realizes. "He was taking back what was rightfully his. And Maddox killed him for it. But there's more." Rose finds a letter in her father's handwriting, addressed to her and dated just days before his death. "My dearest Rose," she reads aloud. "If you're reading this, then Maddox has succeeded in his plan to destroy me. But know this, you are not my daughter by blood but by choice. I found you as a baby, abandoned at the mission in Santa Fe. Your real parents were killed by Apache raiders, but somehow you survived." Rose's hands tremble as she continues reading. "I raised you as my own because you deserved love, not because you were my blood. The gold is yours by right of inheritance, but more than that, it's yours because you've earned it through the love you've shown an old man who needed a daughter. I have left evidence of Maddox's crimes with Father Miguel at the mission. Use it wisely, my dear girl. And remember, family is not about blood. It's about choice." Rose looks at Jack, seeing her own shock reflected in his eyes. "I'm not Samuel Hartwell's daughter. Does it matter? I don't know. Everything I thought I knew about myself is still true. You're still the woman who stood up to Frank Morrison. Still the woman who's risking her life to see justice done." The sound of boots on stone interrupts their conversation. Maddox's men are entering the cave. "Time to choose, Rose," Jack says quietly. "Take the gold and run, or stay and fight for what's right." Rose looks at the fortune in gold, then at the evidence of her adopted father's, murder. The choice crystallizes like frost on winter glass. Some things are worth more than gold. She gathers the documents, tucking them safely inside her dress. "Let's finish this." Harrison Maddox emerges from the shadows like a demon from hell, a tall, elegant man in an expensive suit that somehow remained pristine despite the journey through the canyon. His silver hair gleams in the torchlight, and his smile holds all the warmth of a snake's belly. "Miss Hartwell," he says with mock courtesy. "Or should I say Miss Nobody? I've just learned the most interesting things about your parentage." Behind him, 5 gunmen spread out through the cave, their weapons trained on Jack and Rose. "Maddox," Jack says, his voice carrying deadly calm. "Mr. Raven, your reputation precedes you. Though I must say you look smaller than the stories suggest. Stories have a way of growing in the telling." "Indeed they do. Just as some people have a way of growing beyond their station." Maddox's gaze shifts to Rose. "Did you know, my dear, that your beloved father was a fraud? That he stole you from the mission just as surely as he stole my gold? He saved me. He used you. Created a false identity, a false family, all to legitimize his theft of my property." Rose feels the ground shifting beneath her feet, but Jack's presence steadies her. "Even if that's true, it doesn't change what you did. You murdered him. I eliminated a thief and a liar. Nothing more. And now you want to eliminate me." Maddox's smile widens. "Oh, my dear girl, I have much grander plans for you than simple elimination." He produces a document from his coat, an official-looking paper covered with legal language and official seals. "A marriage contract," he explains, "between Harrison Maddox and Rose Hartwell. Quite legal, quite binding. You see, as Samuel's heir, adopted or otherwise, you have legal claim to his assets, including the gold he stole from me. I'll never marry you. Oh, but you will. Because the alternative is watching Mr. Raven die slowly and painfully." Maddox nods to his men, who cock their weapons with ominous clicks. "You see, my dear, I've done my research on the famous Jack Raven. He has a weakness for protecting the innocent. It's gotten him into trouble before." "What do you mean?" "His brother Tom, for instance. Did he tell you how Tom really died? It wasn't a stray bullet, my dear. It was a choice. Jack could save himself or save his brother. He chose his brother and failed at both." Rose sees Jack's face go white, sees the old guilt resurface like a wound that's never properly healed. "That's not true," she says. "Isn't it? Ask him. Ask him about the choice he made in Abilene. Ask him about the family in Tombstone who died because he chose to protect them instead of walking away." Maddox circles them like a predator sizing up prey. Jack Raven, the great protector. The man who gets everyone he cares about killed. Enough, Jack says quietly. Is it enough? Because I'm offering you the same choice now. Walk away and Miss Nobody here lives to become my wife. Stay and watch her die because of your misguided sense of honor. The cave falls silent except for the roar of the waterfall outside. Rose can see the conflict in Jack's eyes, the desire to protect her warring with the knowledge that his protection might be her death sentence. Jack, she says softly, don't listen to him. But he's right, isn't he? Jack's voice carries the weight of old grief. Everyone I try to protect dies. Maybe it's time I stopped pretending I can save anyone. Maybe it's time you stopped letting the past define the present. Rose steps closer to Jack, her hand finding his. You want to know what I think? I think you've been carrying guilt that isn't yours to carry. I think you've been blaming yourself for other people's choices. Rose? Tom chose to follow you to Abilene. That family in Tombstone chose to stay and fight instead of running. They made their choices just like I'm making mine now. She turns to face Maddox, her chin raised in defiance. I choose to fight. Maddox's smile falters as he realizes his psychological manipulation has failed. Very well. If you won't be reasonable, then you'll be dead. He raises his hand to signal his men, but Jack is already moving. The cave erupts in gunfire and chaos. Jack's Colt speaks with deadly authority, dropping two of Maddox's men before they can react. Rose's Derringer barks twice, the small bullets finding their marks with surprising accuracy. But there are too many of them. A bullet catches Jack in the shoulder, spinning him around. Another grazes Rose's arm, drawing blood. Enough. Maddox roars. Take them alive. The remaining gunmen rush forward, overwhelming Jack and Rose through sheer numbers. Within moments they're disarmed and held at gunpoint. Now then, Maddox says, straightening his tie with fastidious care. Let's discuss terms like civilized people. He produces the marriage contract again, along with an ornate pen. Sign this, my dear, and Mr. Raven lives. Refuse and I'll have him shot in front of you. Rose stares at the contract, seeing her future written in legal language and official seals. Marriage to a murderer. A life of luxury built on blood and lies. What guarantee do I have that you'll keep your word? You have my word as a gentleman. Your word isn't worth the paper it's written on. Maddox's mask of civility slips. Then you have this, sign the contract and I'll make Raven's death quick. Refuse and I'll make it last for days. The choice crystallizes with brutal clarity. Sign the contract and live as Maddox's prisoner, or refuse and watch Jack die for her principles. Rose looks at Jack, seeing acceptance in his winter sky eyes. He's made peace with death, she realizes. He's ready to die for her freedom. But she's not ready to let him. I'll sign, she says quietly. Rose, no, Jack protests. I'll sign on one condition. Maddox raises an eyebrow. You're hardly in a position to make demands. Aren't I? You need me alive to legitimize your claim to the gold. Dead, I'm worthless to you. What's your condition? A fair fight. You and Jack. Guns. Winner takes all. Maddox laughs. My dear girl, I'm not a gunfighter. Then you should have thought of that before you started this. Rose can see the calculation in Maddox's eyes. He's confident in his hired guns, but facing Jack Raven one-on-one is a different proposition entirely. And if I refuse? Then I'll never sign that contract. You can kill me, but you'll never get legal claim to the gold. The standoff stretches like a held breath. Maddox weighs his options while his men shift nervously, sensing their boss's uncertainty. Very well, Maddox says finally. A fair fight. But when I kill your protector, you'll sign that contract without further protest. Agreed. Jack stares at Rose in disbelief. What are you doing? Giving you a chance to break the pattern. They move outside the cave to a flat area beside the waterfall, where moonlight provides enough illumination for the deadly business at hand. Maddox's men form a circle, their guns trained on Rose to ensure she doesn't try to escape. Maddox removes his coat and vest, revealing a shoulder holster containing a nickel-plated Colt .38. Not a gunfighter's weapon, but deadly enough in the right hands. I should mention, Maddox says as he checks his weapon, that I wasn't always a businessman. I spent some time in the army, learned to shoot from some very competent instructors. Jack says nothing, his face a mask of concentration as he prepares for the fight of his life. The rules are simple, one of Maddox's men announces. 10 paces, turn and fire. Last man standing wins. They position themselves back to back, their shadows long in the moonlight. Rose watches from the sidelines, her heart hammering against her ribs like a caged bird. 1, the man counts. Jack and Maddox take their first steps, moving away from each other with measured precision. 2. Rose notices something the others have missed, a glint of metal in the rocks above the cave. Someone else is here watching from the shadows. 3. The figure in the rocks moves slightly, and Rose catches a glimpse of a badge. Sheriff Collins, she realizes. But whose side is he on? 4. Maddox stumbles slightly, his expensive boots slipping on the wet rocks. Jack maintains his steady pace, counting steps in his head. 5. Rose makes her choice. She breaks away from Maddox's men, running toward the rocks where Collins is hidden. 6. Sheriff, she shouts. Help us. Collins emerges from hiding, his gun drawn but wavering between targets. 7. Collins. Maddox roars. Kill the woman. 8. Collins hesitates, torn between his greed and his conscience. 9. Rose reaches the sheriff just as he makes his decision. His gun swings toward her, but she's ready. Her hand closes around a rock the size of her fist. 10. Jack and Maddox turn simultaneously, their guns clearing leather with practiced speed. But Maddox's attention is divided. He's watching Rose and Collins instead of focusing on his opponent. The mistake cost him his life. Jack's bullet takes Maddox center mass, dropping him to the rocky ground like a felled tree. Maddox's shot goes wide, the bullet whining off into the darkness. At the same moment, Rose brings the rock down on Collins' gun hand. The sheriff screams and drops his weapon, clutching his broken fingers. Maddox's remaining men find themselves facing Jack Raven with their boss dead and their backup neutralized. The fight goes out of them like air from a punctured balloon. Drop your guns, Jack orders, his Colt still smoking. They comply immediately, their weapons clattering to the ground like fallen leaves. Rose runs to Jack, throwing her arms around him despite his wounded shoulder. You did it. You broke the pattern. We did it, Jack corrects. We broke it together. 3 months later, Rose stands in the office of the Territorial Bank of Colorado, watching as the last of her father's stolen assets are officially restored to his estate. The evidence from the mission had been more than enough to expose Maddox's crimes and clear Samuel Hartwell's name. Jack enters the office, his arm still in a sling but his color much improved. The bullet wound is healing well, and the haunted look has faded from his winter sky eyes. How much, he asks. After legal fees and restitution to the bank? About $400,000. Jack whistles softly. That's a lot of money. It is. Too much for one person. Rose produces a bank draft, made out to Jack Raven for half the total amount. What's this? Jack asks. Your share. Partners split everything equally. Rose, I can't. You can and you will. We're partners, remember? In this and everything else. Jack studies the bank draft, then looks at Rose with something approaching wonder. What are you going to do with your half? I'm thinking about starting a school. For orphans and abandoned children. Give them the same chance my father gave me. That's a fine idea. What about you? What will you do? Jack considers the question, his gaze drifting toward the mountains that ring the valley. I'm thinking about hanging up my guns. Maybe becoming a teacher myself. At my school? If you'll have me. Rose smiles, the expression transforming her face from pretty to beautiful. I think I can find a place for a reformed gunfighter. They walk out of the bank together, into a world that suddenly seems full of possibilities. Behind them, the past lies buried with Harrison Maddox and his schemes. Ahead, the future stretches like an open road. Jack, Rose says as they reach the street. Do you ever regret it? Giving up the life you knew? Jack considers the question, then shakes his head. Hard to regret something that was killing me slowly. And now I'm learning to live instead of just survive. They mount their horses, new ones bought with honest money, and ride toward the horizon where their school will stand. A place where abandoned children will learn that family isn't about blood, but about choice. A place where broken people can learn to heal. A place where the past doesn't have to define the future. Rose Hartwell and Jack Raven ride into their new life together, no longer running from their demons but walking toward their dreams. Some hands are grabbed in desperation. The best hands are held in hope.